Hi, it's Wednesday, and that means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower, and today we are going to discuss how often widowers change their mind. The idea for this video came from a comment that was posted on my YouTube channel. I posted a video a while back about a woman who was dating a widower and she wanted to have kids. And the widower told her that he didn't want to have kids, and so she was looking. Well, what should I do? And my advice to her was to date someone who wanted to have kids. That if having children was important to her, that she should be dating someone who wanted to have kids and not someone who didn't want to have kids. So someone left a comment on that video recently, and I thought they asked a good question. And this is what they asked. They said, "What are the odds that the widower won't change his mind?" So the widower who doesn't want to have kids, what are the odds that he won't change his mind? Every human being is unique, and knowing nothing more about him than the question that was asked tells you nothing about the odds of him changing his mind. Okay, so good question, and it's actually one I get a lot in my coaching sessions where I'm talking to someone and they're like, well, the widower has broken things off, or I haven't heard from him in a while. What's the odds that he'll change his mind, right? I get that question all the time. How often does that happen? And in short, the answer is the odds of a widower changing his mind are very low, especially on big issues like this. There's smaller issues where the odds go up, but on an issue like having kids or maybe selling the house, things like that, putting the adult children first. If you've already had if you've been in a relationship for a while and the widower is kind of set in his ways, the odds of him changing his mind are extremely low. So let me just talk about this a bit. People need a reason to change, right? We just don't wake up and say, hey, I'm going to, whatever, lose 40 pounds or something like that. There's a reason that people make changes in their life. So for widowers, there's a reason, they go out and they take down the photos or they scatter the ashes and things that need to be done. They do it because they want to move on. They want a new relationship. There's reasons behind it. They don't just wake up and say, I'm going to scatter the ashes today. That doesn't happen. They need, and this isn't just with widowers, it's anyone. This is human nature in general, is people need a reason to change, right? They're not going to, people are very set in their ways, especially the older that they get, and they don't just change for no reason. People need a reason to change. So in this case, if the widower was going to change his opinion on wanting kids, it would have to be because there was something special about the woman he was dating that would make him want to change his mind. Or, it's not something where you go to him and say, hey, I want to have kids. Well, I don't want to have kids. Well, here's 10 reasons we should have kids or you should have kids. That's not how it works. He has to, especially when it comes to the kid issue, it's really a relationship thing. It's like, is the woman special enough that he wants to have kids? It's not something that he just wakes up one day, hey, I want to have kids. For whatever reason, he's decided not to have kids, or that's not something that he wants. And it would take a lot for him to actually go through and actually change his mind on that. Not saying it couldn't happen, because it could, but it would take a lot for him to actually reach that conclusion. Because again, we're not talking about what are we having for dinner? I've changed my mind. I want something else. This is, having kids is very life changing and a lifelong issue. So he would need a very good reason to change his mind. In my opinion, it would mean that he'd have to meet somebody that was, I don't know, just was special enough or was, I don't know, did something to him enough that he could see himself having kids with that person. So it's not really something you can go there and talk about and logically convince someone. Now, this whole change issue, I know we've been kind of talking about kids a lot, having kids, but it really applies to other widower issues as well, like the late wife's ashes on the mantle. Are you going to scatter them? Pictures of the late wife in the home, are you going to take them down? Taking off the wedding ring. Widowers who make the adult kids the priority instead of the woman that he's dating or married to. A widower needs to decide what's more important and whether the woman he's dating is worth making the change or whether he wants to even move forward. So let me give you an example, and I'm actually going to go back to the kid issue there. It's not widower related, but I think it kind of fits this point. So I had a friend growing up who married a woman who didn't want to have kids. Okay, and I knew my friend wanted kids, but this woman didn't want kids, and he thought that, after they got married and maybe were married for a few years, that she'd change her mind at some point and have kids, and want to have kids. Well, they've been married probably 20 years now, and they haven't had any kids. And they're still married, and for what I can tell, they're happily married. Or at least on social media, they're happy like everybody else. But the handful of times I've talked to him over the years, he has mentioned that he would have chosen a different path if he knew that his wife was really serious about not having children. He probably would have called it off earlier. Now, again, it's not he's not going to divorce her over this. And again, they're married, and I think they have a very good life together. But there's something missing. He wants. There's something in the relationship that he wants that she doesn't want, and he knew that going in. She was very open and honest about it, so it's not like he was being deceived or anything like that. I think just in the back of the mind, he had his idea that, oh, I'm gonna, we'll just have this great life together, and and she'll change her mind on kids, and maybe she might, I know there's people out there that have changed their minds after a while on having kids, or maybe they say, yeah, it's fine, let's start a family, but she didn't do it, and so anyway, the point of the story is no matter what the issue is, whether it's kids or wedding rings or photos or ashes or adult children or whatever it is, you need to ask yourself, if the widower you're dating never changes, could you live with it? So if he was exactly the same, so on as far as his priorities and everything else, if he never changed, could you live with it? And you need to be honest with yourself, because if you can't see yourself being happy if the widower doesn't change on certain issues, you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of feeling like second, third, or fourth place, or like my friend, maybe just having this gap in the relationship where he has a good marriage and a good relationship, but there's just something missing. Where it's not quite as fulfilling as it could be. And if you can live with that, that's fine, but you just need to be honest with yourself about how important this change you're asking the widower to make is. So again, yes, widowers can change, but they need to have a reason to change. And the big reason, and honestly, the reason should be for the change is that they want to move forward, and they want to happily ever after with you, and they want to make this change so that you can have a better relationship, things like that. It shouldn't be because you're asking him to, or demanding him to, or threatening, the relationship's over if you don't change. That's not a reason. I mean, you can force people to change, and people do change because they're forced to change, but they really haven't changed. Does that make sense? They're not changing because they're not changing because they want to change. And there's a difference between being forced to change and wanting to change. And the change you want to see with widowers or anybody else is they want to change, right? They want to stop doing this behavior. They want to make you number one because they want to do it, not because you're forcing them to do it. So my suggestion always in coaching sessions is once you've had this honest discussion with yourself about whether or not you can live with this person, but honestly, if the widower isn't willing to make big changes for you, and you see yourself, and these are like kind of deal breaker issues, he's probably not worth it. And maybe again, you have to find somebody else that's willing to have the same kind of relationship or the same things in the relationships if you want. So again, if you're not a priority and the widower is not willing to make changes to make you a priority, he's not worth it. You need to move on. Anyway, if you have comments about changing in widowers and stories you want to share, leave them in the comments below. Feel free, please subscribe to this channel and ring the bell so you get alerts when I've uploaded a new video. And if you want to schedule a coaching session, there's a link down in the comments below as well where you can do that. I'm Abel Keough, author of the book Dating a Widower, and I'll see you next Wednesday.